Let's be honest. If you ask most Europeans what they think about Americans, you'll hear all the classics. They're too loud, they eat too much, they think they're the center of the universe. It's practically a European hobby to roast Americans over a pint or a glass of wine. But here's the funny part. For all the jokes, for all the eye rolling, there are quite a few things Europeans secretly admire about Americans. They might not say it out loud, at least not in front of you, but deep down, they notice, and sometimes they even copy it. Because while Europeans love their history, their traditions, and their quiet little cafes, they can't help but look across the Atlantic and think, okay, that part's actually kind of cool. And that's what this video is all about. The 10 things Europeans secretly admire about Americans. From the big cultural exports to the little everyday quirks, these are the things that make the US, both endlessly mocked and quietly respected. And trust me, some of these will surprise you. Optimism and positivity. One of the first things Europeans notice about Americans is just how positive they are. Walk into a store in Germany and the cashier will say, "Next." Walk into a store in America and it's, "Hi, how's your day going? I love your shirt." Europeans might roll their eyes at this level of cheerfulness, but secretly, they kind of admire it. Because in much of Europe, being overly positive can seem fake. But in the US, it's normal to smile at strangers, to strike up small talk, to believe tomorrow can be better than today. That optimism creates an energy that Europeans sometimes find refreshing. They may joke about it, but they also know it's nice to be around people who genuinely believe things can work out. Friendliness and hospitality. If optimism is the American vibe, then friendliness is the delivery system. Europeans often joke that Americans are too friendly, like it can't possibly be real. But let's be honest, when you land in the US and strangers smile at you, ask how you're doing, or even strike up conversations in line at the grocery store, it feels nice. In many parts of Europe, being friendly to strangers isn't the default. Politeness, yes. Friendliness, not always. In Germany, you mind your own business. In France, small talk is practically illegal. But in America, the barista wants to know how your day is going. The Uber driver tells you his life story, and your neighbor waves every time you walk past. Europeans sometimes tease Americans for this over-the-top friendliness. But deep down, they admire how welcoming it feels. It creates a sense of community, even if it's just chatting with someone for 2 minutes before your coffee is ready. It might not always be deep, but Europeans secretly appreciate that Americans make the effort to connect, even with strangers. Ambition and dream big mentality. If Europe is the land of tradition, America is the land of ambition. Europeans love to joke about Americans being obsessed with success, money, and self-improvement. But secretly, they admire the sheer confidence Americans have when it comes to chasing their dreams. In the US, people grow up hearing, you can be anything you want to be. Astronaut, movie star, billionaire, it doesn't matter how far-fetched it sounds. That dream big mentality is built into the culture. It's why Silicon Valley exists. It's why Hollywood exists. It's why the term American dream is recognized worldwide. Meanwhile, in Europe, ambition is often kept quieter. Dreaming too big can be seen as unrealistic or even arrogant. But when Europeans look at America, they see a country where people actually go for it. They write books, start businesses, audition for shows, launch YouTube channels. Sometimes they fail spectacularly, but the courage to even try? That's something Europeans secretly respect. Sure, they might roll their eyes at motivational speeches and hustle culture, but ask them privately and many will admit they wish their own societies encouraged dreaming as loudly and unapologetically as America does. Innovation and creativity. If there's one thing America is famous for beyond burgers and blockbusters, it's innovation. Europeans might sigh when they hear Americans brag about being the best, but then they check their pockets. And there's an iPhone in there, made by Apple. From California. From Silicon Valley tech to Hollywood movies, from jazz and hip-hop to space exploration, Americans have a knack for turning ideas into reality, and then turning those realities into global trends. Europeans may have centuries-old cathedrals and museums, but America gave the world the airplane, the internet, Netflix, and yes, even the cheeseburger. And it's not just invention, it's creativity. Americans aren't afraid to experiment, to break rules, to mix genres. That's how you end up with things like rap music, superhero franchises, or entire industries built on apps that started in a garage. Europeans often admire this spirit, even if they don't admit it. Because while Europe treasures tradition, America thrives on reinvention. And sometimes, that wild creativity is exactly what pushes the world forward. Confidence and self-promotion. Europeans love to joke about how Americans can walk into a room and act like they own it. But secretly, they kind of admire that swagger. In America, self-confidence isn't just encouraged, it's expected. Job interviews, school presentations, even casual conversations. Americans know how to sell themselves. Here's what I do. Here's what I've achieved. Here's what I want next. Europeans, by contrast, often downplay their skills. In many European cultures, bragging is frowned upon. You're supposed to let your work speak for itself. But here's the catch: confidence works. Americans often get opportunities simply because they ask. They pitch bold ideas, start companies with no guarantees, and promote themselves like they're already stars. Europeans may roll their eyes at this boldness, but deep down they see the value. That confidence can open doors that humility sometimes leaves closed. And it's not just in careers, it's cultural. Americans are raised to believe in themselves, to take risks, to fake it till you make it. Europeans may whisper, they're so arrogant. But inside, they're thinking, I wish I had a little of that courage. Generosity and charity. For all the jokes about Americans being obsessed with money, Europeans also notice something else. Americans give a lot of it away. Charity, donations, volunteering. These are deeply woven into American culture. Whether it's billionaires pledging fortunes to foundations or regular people raising money for a neighbor's hospital bills, generosity is something Europeans quietly admire. In the US, it's normal for schools to organize fundraisers, for companies to run charity drives, or for celebrities to donate millions to causes. In Europe, of course, there's charity too, but it doesn't feel quite as visible or as central to the culture. Americans wear their generosity on their sleeves. They'll proudly say, we raised $10,000 for this cause. Europeans sometimes see it as showy, but also impressive. And it's not just money. Americans are big on volunteering, coaching kids' sports teams, helping at shelters, organizing community events. That spirit of giving back, of pitching in, is something that stands out to visitors. Europeans might laugh at the flashy charity galas and celebrity fundraisers, but deep down, they respect how willing Americans are to share their time and resources. It shows a side of America that's warm, communal, and genuinely admirable. Diversity and multiculturalism. One thing Europeans notice right away about America is just how diverse it is. Walk down a street in New York, Los Angeles, or Chicago, and you'll hear multiple languages, smell food from half a dozen countries, and see people from every background imaginable. Europe has diversity too, of course, but in the US case it feels amplified. Entire cities feel like global mashups. You can have Mexican tacos for lunch, Ethiopian coffee in the afternoon, and Korean BBQ for dinner, all without leaving the same neighborhood. That cultural mix is something Europeans often admire, even if they won't always admit it. And it's not just food. America's music, fashion, and slang are built from dozens of cultural influences colliding together. Jazz, hip-hop, rock and roll, all born from America's unique blend of cultures. Europeans might tease Americans for not having old traditions like castles and medieval villages, but the truth is America's tradition is diversity. On a deeper level, Europeans respect how America, despite its struggles, constantly tries to frame diversity as a strength. Representation in media, conversations about equality, immigration stories, it's messy, but it's visible. And that visibility has inspired other countries to do the same. So while Europeans may criticize America's conflicts and contradictions around diversity, they also admire how boldly it embraces being a nation of many voices. It's chaotic, but it's also uniquely American. Nation of voices. Efficiency and convenience. If Europe prides itself on tradition and patience, America prides itself on speed and convenience. And while Europeans might joke about it, they secretly admire how easy Americans make things. Think about it. 24-hour grocery stores. Drive-through everything, coffee, pharmacies, even weddings if you're in Las Vegas. Same-day delivery on Amazon. In America, you can get almost anything you want, whenever you want it. Europeans may roll their eyes and say, do you really need a 2 a.m. cheeseburger? But deep down, they know. It's kind of amazing that you can. Customer service is another one. In much of Europe, service is polite but reserved. In the U.S., it's enthusiastic, fast, and geared towards solving your problem immediately. Yes, tipping culture is controversial, but the upside is that Americans are used to service with a smile. For Europeans, this level of attentiveness can feel over the top, but also really nice. Even the little things impress. Free refills, takeaway boxes for leftovers, big parking lots, public restrooms that are actually free. Europeans might tease Americans about too much convenience, but when they visit, they definitely notice how smooth life feels when everything is designed for customer comfort. Sure, there are trade-offs. Maybe it's less romantic than sipping coffee at a slow Parisian cafe. But Europeans secretly admire how the US makes everyday life simple, fast, and, well, convenient. Patriotism and national pride. If there's one thing America doesn't do quietly, it's patriotism. Flags on porches, anthems before sports games, 4th of July fireworks. Americans show national pride like it's a daily workout. Europeans often joke about it, saying it feels too much. But secretly, they admire how deeply Americans love their country. In much of Europe, waving the national flag every day can feel old-fashioned or even political. Patriotism there tends to be quieter, often reserved for national holidays or big sports victories. But in the US, well, pride is built into daily life. Kids say the Pledge of Allegiance at school. People belt out the national anthem at baseball games. Even a regular Tuesday barbecue can turn into a mini celebration of the land of the free. Europeans may tease this as cheesy, but they also recognize the unity it creates. That shared sense of belonging is powerful. It's why Americans come together so strongly in times of crisis. It's why communities rally behind local teams, local schools, and local causes. And while Europeans might not copy the fireworks and flag waving, they often admire how open Americans are about loving their country. It shows confidence, loyalty, and a kind of collective spirit that, even if exaggerated at times, feels inspiring. So yes, it looks over the top. But Europeans secretly know there's something kind of beautiful about being that proud of where you come from. Resilience and optimism in hard times. If there's one quality Europeans quietly respect most about Americans, it's resilience. No matter what crisis hits, economic crashes, natural disasters, political turmoil, Americans somehow bounce back with a mix of grit and optimism. Europeans notice how Americans respond to setbacks with phrases like, "We'll rebuild," "We'll get through this," or the classic, "Never give up." It can sound cliché, but it reflects a deeper cultural habit. The belief that even in hard times, things can improve. Take natural disasters. In many countries, tragedy can leave communities feeling hopeless. In the U.S., people often rally together almost immediately. Neighbors helping neighbors, fundraisers popping up, volunteers showing up from across the country. Europeans might joke about Americans being dramatic, but they admire how quickly communities mobilize to support each other. This resilience is tied to the American dream mindset, the idea that failure isn't final. Lose a job? Start over. Business goes bankrupt? Try again. Europeans often grow up in cultures that prize stability over risk-taking, so seeing Americans embrace second, third, or even fourth chances is both surprising and admirable. And it's not just in disasters, it's in everyday life. Americans face criticism, setbacks, and global mockery, but they keep pushing forward with an almost stubborn optimism. Europeans may smirk at it, but they know. It takes strength to keep believing in better days. That resilience, that refusal to stay down, is one of the traits that truly earns America respect, even when the jokes never stop. So there you have it. 10 things Europeans secretly admire about Americans. From optimism to ambition, innovation to resilience, these are the qualities that cut through the stereotypes and make the UAEs not just mocked but also respected. Yes, Europeans still roll their eyes at giant sodas and loud "USA, USA" are chants. But deep down, they see the value in American friendliness, generosity, creativity, and never give up spirit. They may laugh at the cliches, but they also know there's something magnetic about a culture that dreams big and keeps going, no matter what. And maybe that's the real lesson here. America isn't perfect, but it's bold. It wears its flaws loudly, but it also wears its strengths proudly. And while Europeans might never admit it out loud at the dinner table, many of them secretly think, okay, that part of America, that's actually pretty great. So now the question's for you. Which of these traits do you think Europeans admire the most? And if you're European watching this, be honest. Which one do you secretly wish your country had more of? Let me know in the comments, and of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because if there's one more thing Americans are admired for, it's making sure you never leave without a reminder to hit that button.